This is the first video of section 4 on building the arena. In this video we're going to generate the matchup that is going to contain both a random animal and a terrain. The first thing we'll do is writing methods for getting a random animal and terrain. Afterwards we're going to write a spec to make sure our matchup generator works as intended. And lastly, we'll implement the matchup generating method using our test spec as a reference. Okay, let's get started by jumping straight into the animal service and then adding a new method called getRandomAnimal. This method is going to retrieve a random animal from our animals collection. We'll do this by accessing the animals collection and then randomizing the index, which is just done through math_random and then flooring it and getting the array's length. This is to make sure we don't go out of the array's bounds and that we always get an animal. Next up is the terrain service. We'll implement the exact same method here. You can just copy paste it. Make sure to change any animals references to terrains instead. Alright, looks good. We can't really write tests for this since the outcome is always random anyway. However, since this is pretty much a single line of code that has such a simple and singular purpose, we don't really need a test anyway. Now that that's done, we're going to combine these two methods to generate a random arena matchup. Let's go back to our test directory and create a new file for our arena service, which we'll create in just a bit. Let's call the test arena.js and then house it in the services directory. First, we're going to have to write some boilerplate code to set up our test correctly, and then we're off, just like last time. What this matchup generator returns is random, so we're just going to check to make sure that the things that we want are defined instead of checking for a specific value. Also, don't forget to inject the arena service here, and we'll just create a variable called matchup, which is going to hold the matchup generated by the arena service. So it should return an object that contains both a random opponent animal and the randomly selected terrain. Alright, let's implement it and then combine the methods we created earlier. We're going to create our file first in the source scripts services folder. Let's add a new service called arena.js. Declare the service on the packed module, inject both the animals and terrain services. We'll add the method to our service. Remember, it was called generateMatchup. Let's create two variables, one called opponent, we'll get a random animal from the animal service to fight against, and the other variable called terrain will determine where we'll be having this fight. Now it looks like I made a sloppy mistake here. I actually forgot to rename the method's name from getRandomAnimal to getRandomTerrain. So let's go back to the terrain service and fix that real quick. Finally, return an object containing both our generated opponent and terrain. Let's run the tests to make sure that everything works as intended. And voila, we have our matchup. Now that we have our matchup generator, we can start calculating scores for the animal and the terrain. That's exactly what we're going to do in the next video. See you there.